G'day lads, in this video I'll show you how to create a fixture list for a competition in Excel where you can put in the number of teams and the number of rounds you want and it'll spit it out automatically. I'll also show you how to make a league table that displays the results. If you want to download this file, click the first link in the description below to join the Excel Lads Patreon, where you'll be able to join the community of lads and get access to every single file I've put up on the channel. The first step, lads, is to merge and center cells A1 to D1 in a brand new sheet. And once you've put a bit of formatting in there, type the text teams in. Then once you've done that, below in cell A2, type in the text number of teams. Then in A3, games against each other. And for the first competition, we'll generate a fixture list with 10 teams, put 10 in B2, and I want each team to play each other twice, so put 2 in B3. Now go over to cell A14, where you're going to type in the text round, and then equals 1 in A15. In A16, it's going to be equals if, open bracket, A15, absolute reference the column, is less than, open bracket, even, open bracket, B2, absolute reference this number, close the bracket, -1, close the bracket, then you're going to multiply that by B3, absolute reference this, comma, A15, absolute reference the comma, that's the value if true, and we want to add 1 to that. And for the value if false, just put 2 commas with nothing in between, close the bracket, and we've got 2. Now you want to drag this all the way down to cell A113. And once you've done that, it's going to show the number of rounds in your competition. So if we have 10 teams playing each other twice, there should be 9 rounds in the first lot of games, 9 rounds in the second lot. That equals 18 total rounds, which we've got here. You can actually change this, so if I go up to B2 and change it, it will update accordingly. Now you're going to go to cell B14, go equals 1. Once you've done that, do the same thing in cell C14, equals 1. Then in D14, we're going to type in this formula, equals if, open bracket, B14 is less than, we're going to use the even function, open bracket, even, open bracket, B2, absolute reference, close bracket, divided by 2. Then, if that's true, it's going to be B14 plus 1. If it's not true, 2 commas. Once you've done that, drag across to cell Y14. And if you come across to the left again, this row is basically saying, well, there's 10 teams in the competition, meaning there'll be 5 games, and numbers appear twice to represent Team A and Team B in that game. So 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and 5, 5. Now if we come over to B2 and change it to another number, say 6, there'll be 3 games in each round, and then if games against each other is 2, there'll be 10 rounds overall. And now starting in B15, we're going to make a matrix of who each team is playing in that round. So in cell B15, type in the formula equals if, open bracket, is number function, and we want to say if there's a number in A15, then value if true is going to be 1. If there's not, it's just going to be speech mark, illustrating nothing. Close the bracket, press enter. Drag this down to cell B113 by double clicking. And you can see that so long as there's a round being played, there's going to be a 1 in that B column. This is what we want because team 1 will always be the first team to play in this unsorted matrix. In cell C15, we're going to type in the formula equals B2. And so in this first match in round 1, we've got team 1 playing team 10. Now come over to cell D15, it's going to be equals if there's a number in cell D14, and that's that round on top, number 2, equals true, then comma, B15 plus 1. We want to add 1 to B15 if that is a value there, and if not, then speech mark, close the bracket, press enter. And now we've got team 2 playing in the second game of round 2, or round 1 rather. In cell E15, it's going to be equals if there's a number in cell E14, so is number E14 equals true, then return C15 minus 1. So that's going to be 10 minus 1. If there's not, it's just going to be speech mark again, close the bracket. And now in this second game of round 1, we've got team 2 playing team 9. Select D15 to E15 and then drag that across to Y15. Great, and now we've got the teams playing each other in each round, 2v9, 3v8, 4v7, and 5v6. And so you can double check that every team plays exactly once, and they should, using this formula. Now in cell C16, we're going to type in the formula equals if there's a number, so is number A16, absolute reference to column only, equals true, then, if that's true, if, open bracket, if C15 is greater than 2, then return C15 minus 1. And if it's not, return B2, absolute reference B2, by putting a $ in front of the column and row. Close the bracket, comma, speech mark, close bracket, press enter. And then now we've got team 1 playing team 9 in the first game of round 2. Drag that down to cell C113 by double clicking. And then now we can see that what it's basically doing is repeating itself. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then it does the same thing because games against each other is 2 rather than 1. Now in cell D16, you're going to type in the formula equals if, open bracket, and our first criteria for the AND function is going to be is number A16 equals true. So close the bracket, equals true, absolute reference to the column. Now, the second logical argument is going to be is number D14 equals true. And that's that cell above. Close the bracket. Absolute reference to row only. Close the bracket. Now, if both of those logical arguments are true, then return the if function. If D15 is greater than 2, return D15 minus 1. If not, return B2, absolute reference that. Close the bracket, comma, and then you're going to put 2 speech marks illustrating nothing if false. Close the bracket and press enter. Double click that to autofill the formula down to cell D113. And then once that's done, you can drag the formula across to the Y column. Great. So you can scroll up now and we have our full matrix filled in. So every single round has 5 games and we can see who's playing each other in that game. Now if I change the number of teams in the competition to 20, the horizontal and vertical rows will update so that we get a matrix for any combination of teams and the number of times each team plays each other in that competition. Change it back to 10. And then now you're going to scroll down to cell A114 where you're going to put the text round. And so down here, we're going to create a new matrix that sorts teams so that half of their games are home and half of their games are away. In A115 equals 1 again. In A116, it's going to be equals if A115 is less than, open bracket, the even function, open bracket, B2, absolute reference, close bracket, minus 1, close bracket, times B3, absolute reference that as well. Then it's going to be A115 plus 1. And if that's not true, nothing. Close the bracket, enter, and then drag this down all the way to A215. This formula acts exactly the same as the one in the above matrix in that if there's 10 teams in the comp, each team plays each other twice in the year, then there'll be 18 rounds, and so 18 should show up exactly the same. Now in B114 and C114, it's 1 and 1 again. Now in D114, we're doing the formula equals if, open bracket, if B114 is less than, open bracket, even B2, absolute reference, close the bracket, divided by 2, close bracket, then return B114 plus 1. If not, return nothing, indicated by 2 speech marks. Then we get 2, drag that across to Y114. Then we're going to go straight back to cell B115, where we're going to put the formula equals if, open bracket, is even, open bracket, A115, absolute reference the column only, so $ A115, close the bracket, comma. If that's true, return C15. If it's false, return B15. So basically what's this saying? It's going, right, if the round is even, then we're going to return the away team. If it's not, return the home team in the matrix above, and wrap that in an if error function. Press enter, and then we've got a little glitch on the side here, so delete that. But in cell B115, you should get the answer 1, no matter how many games or rounds in your fixture list. So now in cell C115, we've got equals if. This time it's an is odd function. So equals if cell A115 is odd, then return C15. If not, if it's even, return B15. So close the bracket, we're going to wrap it in an if error function again, so that if there's an error, when we drag it down to the below cells, we'll return nothing. Press enter, and then we shall get the team 10 here. So that corresponds with the matrix above, team 1 versus team 10. And now when you select cells B115 to C115, double click it so it fills down to row 215. We can drag that across to the Y column, and we can go back up to see our matrix sorted so that one team plays exactly or approximately half of their games at home and half of their games away. So we can see team 1 plays home, away, home, away, home, away. So it sort of swaps, and that's the same for the other teams too. When you reach the second lot of rounds, the rounds or teams themselves are inverted in their matches. So if they played at home in round 1, they'll play away in round 10. Name this sheet raw calculations, and then go ahead and create a new worksheet called fixtures. So press that plus button there, type in the text fixtures, and then we're going to merge and center cells A1 to I1, add a blue fill, make it bold, and in here we're going to type in the text competition fixtures. Great, now in cell A2, type in the text round, in B2 match, C2 home team, D2 score, F2 score, G2 away team, H2 ground, and then make sure there's enough space for each column. Fill that in grey, and these are going to be our headers for the fixture list we're going to generate from the matrices we calculated in the raw calculations spreadsheet. So now in cell K1, you're going to type in the text teams, and then in cell K2, games against each other. Now in cells L1 to L2, it's going to be the number of teams and games we want each team to play against each other, exactly the same as in the raw calculations worksheet, except now we want the ability to change it in the fixtures worksheet, because that's where we're going to be able to view our competition fixtures. So we're going to actually go back into the raw calculations worksheet and change cell B2, if we scroll up, which is the number of teams in the competition, equal to fixtures L1. So that when we update L1 in the fixtures worksheet, then raw calculations will update too. Do the same thing for B3 equals to fixtures L2. And then so if we go back into fixtures now and we change the number of teams to say 12 and then the games to 1, then our teams playing each other in the raw calculations worksheet will update. Change it back to 10 teams and each playing 2 games against each other. And then now in cells K4 to M4, we're going to type in 3 column headers. They're going to be in the column K, team number, column L, club name, and in column M, home ground. So we've got to list the number of teams. So if there's 10 teams, 1 through to 10, the club name, and their home ground. So select cells K5 to K28. Here we're going to create a box. So put it in light green fill, then go into borders and select outside borders. Once you've done that, come over to the top left, paste formatting into L5, paste the same formatting again into M5, and we should have a table with 3 boxes like so. Now in cell K5, you're going to put equals 1 because there'll always be at least 1 team in the competition. And below that in K6, we're going to type in the formula equals if, open bracket, now our test is going to be open bracket, K5 plus 1, close bracket, is less than or equal to even, open bracket, L1 absolute reference, close bracket. If that's true, return K5 plus 1. If it's not true, return nothing, indicated by those two speech marks again. Close the bracket, wrap in an if error function so that if there's an error, return nothing. And then drag cell K6 down to cell K28. And you can test if this sequence works by updating the number of teams. If we change it to 12, then it should be a sequence from 1 through to 12 rather than 1 through to 10. Re-add that bottom border. And now we've got the team numbers, we need to add the clubs that are actually in our competition. So I'm going to fill those out now. We've got the Wanderers, Inter Miami, Chelsea, Al Nassr, Bayern, Roma, Lyon, Real Madrid, Santos, and PSV. I'm also going to add their home ground or their stadium in column M. Great. Now, once you've done that, I'm going to show you an example of when you have an odd number of teams. So go up to L1 and I'm going to change the number of teams to 11. So because we've used an even function in column K, the team numbers actually extend down to 12. So input the 11th team. I'm going to put in England in L15 and then I'll put in M15 Wembley. Now for the 12th quote unquote team, it's going to be a bye, right? So we have to put bye in capital letters within cell L16. And that indicates that whenever team 1 plays, say, team 12, it'll be the Wanderers versus a bye. So effectively, Wanderers are playing a bye, and anybody playing team 12 in the competition will have a bye. Now go over to A2 and select cells A2 all the way through to A1000. So go down to A1000. Once you've done that, go into borders. It's going to be outside borders. Go into the top left here, copy the formatting, paste it in, copy the formatting, paste it in, and then do the same thing from columns A all the way to column I. So all you're doing is copy and pasting the formatting so we've got a border separating each column. Now very quickly lads, I'm going to select cells A3 to I1000, and here all I'm going to do is just make sure that the text for when we type it in is in the middle of the cell. So once you've selected those cells, just put it in the middle like I've done up here. Now go over to cell A4 where you're going to put equals 1. Then in cell A5 we're going to put quite a long formula. It's going to begin with an if function. So equals if open bracket. I'm now going to drag the formula box down a bit because it will get pretty lengthy. Equals if open bracket another if function, open bracket or function, open bracket mod function. Okay, so open bracket, our number is going to be A4 plus open bracket 1 divided by bracket bracket even function L1, absolute reference this along with A4, close the bracket divided by 2, close bracket plus 1 and then close the bracket twice, plus open bracket 1 divided by 2 open brackets, even L1 again, absolute reference, close bracket, divide by 2, close bracket, plus 1, close the bracket twice. You're going to multiply that by open bracket row function, ROW, open bracket, close bracket, minus row, open bracket, A4, absolute referenced again, close the bracket twice, comma, 1 for the divisor, close the bracket, and then that's going to be less than 0.01. So once you've done that, you're going to select 0.01, the end of that formula, all the way to the start of the mod function. Copy that, because we're going to use it right now. You're going to put a comma, paste the function again, and then this time instead of it being less than 0.01, it's going to be more than 0.99. Cool, once you've done that, comma, close the bracket first, then comma, speech marks, indicating if that's true, then put nothing, then comma. We're going to use the round down function, open bracket, A4 absolute referenced, plus, open bracket, 1 divided by 2 open brackets, even function, and we're referring to L1 now, absolute reference that, close the bracket, divide by 2, close bracket, plus 1, close two brackets, multiplied by, open bracket, row function, open bracket, close bracket, minus row A4, close a bracket there, close a bracket again, comma, 0, close bracket, more than, open bracket, even, open bracket, L1 absolute referenced, close the bracket, minus 1, close the bracket, multiplied by L2 absolute referenced, and then if that's true, returns speech mark, then do comma. Now we need the formula if the logical test is false, and we're going to copy everything before that greater than sign. So right here, copy all of that all the way up to the second if function. So copy that. Once you've done that, come over to the value if false, and then simply paste it in, close one bracket, and then press enter. Once you've done that, you should get, if you're having 11 teams in the comp with 2 games against each other, 1 in A5. Now, if you drag that down to say A20, well, this is how the formatting should look. There's 6 games in every round, so 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then for round 2, another 6 2s, and then for 3, it's going to be another 6 3s, all the way until the final round. So drag that formula down to A1000, and if we scroll up, we can see the result of our formula. It might take a bit to appear, but that's what it should look like. The number of the round repeated for n times, where n is the number of games in a round, all the way up to the final round, which is round 22, when there's 11 teams and they play each other twice in the competition. Now scroll back up to column B, where in B4 you're going to enter equals 1, and then in B5 we're going to come up with another formula. This formula is going to be slightly more simple. It's equals if there's a number in cell A5, so is number A5 equals true, then return an if function, and that if function is going to be if there is a number in B4, so is number, open bracket, B4, close bracket, equals true, then return B4 plus 1. If that's not true, return 1, close the bracket, and if the initial logical test is false, return nothing, close the bracket, press enter, and then when we double click to drag the formula down to row 1000, we shall get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now in cell C4, we need to match the team playing in the first match of round 1. So to do this, we're going to use a VLOOKUP formula. Equals VLOOKUP. Now the lookup value will be an index function. Index, open bracket, the array is raw calculations B115 to Y215. So type that in yourself and make sure you obviously absolute reference this so that when we drag the formula down, the calculations change accordingly. Comma, the row number is going to be A4 and the column number is going to be 1 plus 2 multiplied times, open bracket, B4 minus 1. Close the bracket twice. The table array is going to be K5 to M28 in the current sheet. And so that's the team number, club name, and home ground table. Absolute reference this. And then because we want to return the home team, we need to return the club name. So the column index number is going to be 2. Close the bracket once you've done that, and then we want to wrap that in an if error function so that, say in row 10 where there's no round or match, make sure that there's no value there. Press enter, and our first home team is the Western Sydney Wanderers. Double click to drag the formula down to row 1000, and then we've got our list of teams here. The good thing about this model is I've misspelt Bayern, so I can rewrite Bayern Munich to its correct spelling, and then it'll update in column C because we're using that VLOOKUP formula. Great, now in column E, I want to put a verse symbol in every column where there's a game. So it's going to be equals if the length of C4 is greater than 0, then return speech mark verse speech mark. And if it's not, return nothing. So drag that down all the way to row 1000, or double click to autofill the formula down. And then when I scroll back up, you'll see that every time there's a game, there'll be a verse symbol. And because this model is big, or if you have background tasks running, just make sure you refresh so the formula comes up. Now for the away team, it's going to be the same process, equals VLOOKUP, open bracket, index, open bracket. It's going to be raw calculations B115 to Y215. Type that in yourself, absolute reference it, meaning you put a $sign in front of both the column and the row number. Comma A4, comma B4 multiplied by 2 for the column number. Close the bracket, comma, the table array is K5 to M28 as it was in column C. Absolute reference this, and we're still returning the club name. So the column index number will be 2. Close the bracket and wrap in an if error function so we can drag it down until row 1000. Press enter, and we have got our list here. So drag that down to 1000. Now this formula in cells or columns G and C is absolutely correct, but I want you to look at column 9, or row 9 rather, really quickly. We'll see that Roma is actually versing Roma, and obviously that's a mistake. A club can't play itself, but we'll do a really quick fix in the model in 2 minutes after we do column H, which is returning the ground for the home team, and that's going to be a VLOOKUP function as well, equals if, open bracket, or open bracket, C4 equals by, and speech marks, or G4 equals by. So if either the home team or the away team is the club by, then return nothing. If not, then return a VLOOKUP function to match the home team to their home stadium or home ground. It's going to be C4 as the lookup value. The table array is L5 to M28, absolute referenced. The column index number's 2, and the range lookup is false. Close the bracket twice, and we're going to wrap that in an if error function. Value if error, speech mark. Close the bracket, press enter, and then double click on the bottom right hand box to drag down the formula to row 1000. Our model is 99% done. If you look in the raw calculations worksheet, because there's an odd number of teams, you'll see in match 6 of round 1, team 6 is versing team 6, aka Roma is playing Roma. So to fix that, we need to make one slight change in the raw calculations worksheet. So instead of the teams being 11 showing up as 11 in raw calculations, go into B2 and then wrap fixtures L1, because here it returns 6 playing 6, wrap fixtures L1 in an even function. So even, open bracket, fixtures L1, close bracket, press enter. And then so 12 comes up here, meaning team 6 plays team 7. And so if we go back into fixtures, suddenly Wanderers are playing the bye, meaning there'll be no game, and PSV are playing next round. So everything works out properly. If we change the number of teams to 8, we can get rid of Santos through to the bye. We don't need the bye anymore because it's an even number of teams. Then our schedule updates normally, so we have all 8 teams playing each other at the applicable stadium. And that is our competition fixture list model completely done. Now in columns D and F, I'm just going to input some scores so we can create a league table based off of this model. Lads, before we compile a league table based off of the results in the fixtures worksheet, we've got to name some ranges. So from C4 to C1000, name that home_team, press enter. Now from D4 to D1000, so you can select those cells. We're going to name that home_score. So go up to that top left-hand box over here where it says D4, and then type in home underscore score. Press enter, and then now that range is named. Do the exact same thing for column F, but instead, obviously, it will be away score instead of home score. So select the range, away underscore score, press enter. And then for column G, G4 to G1000, name that range away underscore team. Easy. Okay, so now you're going to create a new worksheet and title it League Table. In this worksheet, we'll be making the table based off of the results entered in the home and away score ranges in the fixtures worksheet. Scroll down to row 51 of this worksheet, and here we're going to create a table which we're then going to sort up in cell A1 and below. So from column A to the right, put in the headers club, matches played, wins, draws, losses, goals for, goals against, goal difference, points, ranking points, and then club. Now for the club in A52, it's simply equals, and then you're going to go L5. Press enter to that. And then in cell A53, we've got to be able to have a formula to drag down to return the remaining teams. That's going to be equals if, open bracket, now our test, it's going to be row function, open bracket, close bracket, minus row A52, close a bracket. If that's greater than or equal to the number of teams in fixtures L1, absolute reference that, then return nothing, speech mark. If not, return an if function. If, open bracket, offset, our reference cell is going to be fixtures L5, absolute reference that. The number of rows is going to be equals to row, open bracket, close bracket, minus row, open bracket, A52, absolute referenced, close bracket, 0, close bracket, equal to 0. If that's true, return nothing. If it's not true, return offset. The reference cell is again going to be L5 in the fixtures worksheet. Number of rows is going to be equal to the row function minus row A52, absolute reference, and the number of columns is 0. Close a bracket, and then close a bracket a third time. So we get Inter Miami here for A53, and then drag that all the way down to A100, where we should get all of the teams. And then we can actually do a little experiment here. If we go back into the fixtures worksheet, change the number of teams to 7, press enter, and then so that means there'll still be 8 quote-unquote teams. Real Madrid won't be the 8th team though, it'll be the bye. So replace cell L12 with bye, and then in the league table, only the 7 teams will show up. So go back into fixtures, change it to 8 teams yet again with Real Madrid, and then the league table will update like so. Now the next formula we need to do in cell B52 is find out how many games the Wanderers have played, and we can do that by going equals if, open bracket, if the length, so LEN, open bracket, A52, is more than 0, return some product, open bracket. Now our first criteria is going to be A52, absolute reference to column only, has to be equal to the home team, close a bracket. Multiply this by the criteria is number, open bracket, the home score. So the home score has to be a number. So equals true. Close a bracket again. Now what we're going to do is copy and paste this sum product formula, go plus, and then paste it again. Now we're going to change the home team to the away team and the home score to the away score. So it's plus, and then changing it to away. The value, if false, is going to be speech mark, representing nothing. Press enter, and the Wanderers have played 1 match, double click, so the formula goes down to cell B100, or drag it down if you want. And we can test this by going back into fixtures, and then say removing 1 game. So let's say the Wanderers and Real Madrid haven't played yet, then the matches played goes back to 0. So we'll update that cell again, go back in the league table, and it's fixed. Now, to calculate the wins, it's going to be nearly the same function, but adding in one extra argument the sum product function is going to take in. So in between the two brackets after the equals true of the is number criteria, multiply, open bracket, home score has to be greater than the away score. Home underscore score more than away underscore score. Now do the same thing for the second sum product, but this time, because the team's playing away, for a win to count, the away score has to be greater than the home score. So when they're playing at home, the home score has to be greater than the away score, and vice versa. So double click that down, and then only Bayern and Real Madrid have recorded wins this season, which is true when we go back into the fixtures worksheet. And so now we've got to calculate the draws, losses, all the way up to the points. And we can do that by selecting the formula and dragging it across all the way to column H. So once you've done that, you can scroll back up to the table. And all the values are the same, they just require one little tweak for each column. So for the draws, when a team plays at home, a draw is going to count when the home score is equal to the away score. Same thing when they're away. Away score equals home score. Drag that formula down to D100, and we can see Miami, Chelsea, Roma, and Lyon have one draw each. Now for the loss, when a team plays at home, the home score's got to be less than the away score and vice versa. So drag that formula down to E100. And then for the goals for, instead of it being multiplied by a home score greater than away score, we're just recording the home score. So it's basically the sum of the score at home when a team's played at home, plus the sum of the away score when a team's played away, and that gives you the goals for. Drag that down to F100. Now the goals against, when a team plays at home, well, the goals against will be the away score, and vice versa, the home score when they're playing away. Press enter. The goals against for Wanderers is 4. Drag that down. Now the goal difference will just be the home score minus the away score when a team plays at home, and the away score minus the home team when they play at away, or the away score minus the home score, that is. Now for the points, it's going to easily be calculated by 3 multiplied by wins plus the draws, so 3 by C52 plus D52. Then we're going to wrap that in an if function. If the length of cell A52 is greater than 0, then return 3 times C52 plus D52, which gives you the points. And then if the length is not greater than 0, return nothing. Drag that down to I100. Then we can see only Bayern and Real Madrid have the 3 points, because those are the only 2 teams that have won games. Now the ranking points formula in J52 is going to rank teams based on firstly their points, then their goal difference, then the goals for. So it's going to be equals if the first criteria, if the length of A52 is greater than 0, then return the ranking points formula. And that's going to be I52 times 1000, the points by 1000, plus the goal difference in H52, plus the goals for in F52 multiplied by 1 divided by 1000. And then lastly, if a team's still tied based on these metrics, we're going to differentiate them by going plus row, open bracket, close bracket, multiplied by 1 divided by a million. So this formula discriminates teams based on firstly their points, then their goal difference, then their goals for, and then finally the row they're on. So close a bracket there, and then you can drag that formula down to J100 by double clicking or dragging it yourself. And then we can see that Real Madrid has a higher points total than Bayern, which means they are supposed to be first. So remove the club header from K51. We're going to put rank there instead, and then put club in L51. The formula for K52 is going to be equals rank.eq, and we're going to use this rank function to rank teams based off of their ranking points. The number will be the ranking points themselves, so it'll be J52. We want to rank that in the reference cells of J52 to J100. Absolute reference that, because when we drag this K52 formula down to K100, we want the reference cells to stay constant. And then, of course, wrap this in an if error function so that when there's no club to rank, then there won't be an error showing up like NA. Great, so Wanderers are actually last, 8 out of 8 teams, so fill that formula down to K100. Now the club column is going to be equals A52 and drag that down as well. Great, so we've filled out everything we can for this table. It's time to go up to cell A1. There we're going to type in position, and it's sort of going to be the same table except that they're going to be ranked by position, so it's going to be a proper table. Copy and paste A51 to I51, then you'll get all these columns out to J, adjust the width appropriately. Now the position is going to be a sequence of 1 through to the number of teams in the competition. So in A2 it's obviously going to be 1. Then in A3 type in the formula equals if, and we want to say if open bracket A2 is less than, going to fixtures, less than L1, absolute referenced, then return A2 plus 1. If not, return nothing. Press enter. And then if you drag A3 down to cell A50, then you'll get a sequence of teams from 1 through to 8, if there's 8 teams in the comp, which there is. Now we've got to return the club who are coming first. And so to do that, we're going to use the VLOOKUP function. Equals VLOOKUP, the lookup value will be the position in A2, absolute reference to column only. Then the table array is going to be K52 to L100. That's the range below. Absolute reference all of that, and then I'll drag the text down to show you. So that's that table there, the rank and the club, which we calculated 2 minutes prior. The column index numbers 2, we're returning the club, and comma false, close the bracket, and then wrap that in an if error function. So if there's an error, return nothing. Press enter. Real Madrid are first, drag that down to B50 or autofill to B50, and the Wanderers are 8th. Now for the matches played and all the way through to points, we're using another VLOOKUP function. So equals VLOOKUP, open bracket, the lookup value is B2, the club itself, absolute reference to column. The table array is A52 to I100, and once you absolute reference all of that and scroll down, you can see that it's this table. The column index number will be a formula. It's going to be the column function, open bracket, close bracket, -1. Now the range lookup is going to be false. We want an exact match. Close the bracket and wrap in an if error function. If there's an error, return nothing as always. Great, so Real Madrid have played 1 match. Drag C2 down to C50 and then drag this formula across to J50. And then when you scroll up, the whole table will be filled out so that it's correct. Highlight Real Madrid in gold as they've come first in the competition. And then now we've got our league table completely done. So we can experiment with this, have a look to see if the results are correct. If we go into fixtures, we're able to change the Wanderers score over Real Madrid to say 6-4, which means Wanderers actually leapfrog right into first and Madrid fall back to last. The goals against and goals for are correct, so are the points. And we can change the number of teams in the competition to say 6, games against each other 3. So Leon and Real Madrid are no longer in the competition. Input the new scores, and then you should be able to see the resulting update in the league table if you go back into that worksheet. And Bayern are now first with Al Nassr last, and the points are all correct. Everything is done. Well, thanks for watching, lads. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to download this file and have access to the fastest growing Excel community out there, make sure you join the Excel Lads Patreon. That'll be the first link in the description below.